Amy Roberts pressed the final key on her computer. The hack began immediately. Lines of code flowed across her screen as the Defiance's computer system connected to the Zephyrian network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything changed. "I'm in," Amy whispered. "Captain, I can see their entire command structure, every ship, every order, every piece of data they share." Jake Morrison moved to stand behind her station. "What do you see?" "Their network is like a pyramid. Orders come from the top and flow down to every ship. But, Captain, there are thousands of ships connected to this network. Not just the ones. Here. Ships all across the galaxy." Dr. Ben Clark looked up from his science station. "Amy, are you saying this network connects their entire military?" "Not just military, everything. Their government, their police, their factories. The whole empire runs on this one network." Jake felt his heart race. They had stumbled into something much bigger than a single battle. If Amy could disrupt this network, it might affect the entire Zephyrian Empire. "What kind of orders are flowing? Through the system?" he asked. Amy studied her screen. "Mostly routine stuff. Ship movements, supply requests, status reports. But, Captain, they all follow the same pattern. Every order must be obeyed exactly. No questions, no changes, no independent thinking. Can you send false orders?" "I think so. But I need to be careful. If I send something too obviously wrong, they might realize what's happening." On the Zephyrian flagship, War Admiral Kethvar was growing more frustrated by the minute. The human ship had now destroyed 42 vessels and showed no signs of slowing down. Worse, his ships were starting to make mistakes. Formation patterns were breaking down. Some captains were hesitating. "Before following orders, status report," he demanded. "Sir, we are experiencing minor communication delays in the network. Nothing serious, but response times are slower than normal." Kethvar did not know that Amy Roberts was already inside his network, watching every message, learning how the system worked. She had been studying Zephyrian language and military codes for 30 minutes, and now she was ready to act. "Captain, I'm going to start with something small," Amy announced. "I'm going to order a group of ships to change positions slightly." She typed carefully, creating an order that looked like it came from Admiral Kethvar himself. The order told 20 ships to move to new positions that would block the line of fire for other ships. The order went out through the network. 20 Zephyrian ships immediately changed course, moving exactly where Amy told them to go. They did not question the order. They did not check if it made sense. They simply obeyed. "It worked," Amy said excitedly. "Those 20 ships just moved out of formation." "Can you do more?" Jake asked. "Yes, but I need to be smart about it. If I send too many false orders at once, they will figure out what's happening." The battle continued around them. Commander Alex Thompson had switched to manual, targeting, relying on his experience and instincts. The weapons were less accurate without computer assistance, but they were still effective. 3 more Zephyrian ships exploded under his precise fire. "Bridge, this is medical," came Dr. Carol White's voice over the communication system. "I have 12 crew members with injuries from the battle. Nothing fatal, but they need rest." "Understood, Doctor. Do what you can," Jake replied. He looked around his bridge. His crew had been fighting for 4 hours straight. They were tired, hurt, and running on determination alone. But they were still fighting, still protecting the colonists, still refusing to give up. "Captain, the second transport is ready to launch," Gary Martinez reported. "All remaining colonists are on board. Tell them to wait," Jake ordered. "If they launch now, the Zephyrian ships will destroy them." "Yes, sir." Jake turned back to Amy. "How are you doing with the network?" "Getting better. I've learned how to make my orders look more official. Watch this." Amy sent out a new order. This time, she told 50 ships to form a defensive screen around their flagship. The order seemed reasonable, so the ships obeyed immediately. but the new formation left gaps in their attack pattern, giving the Defiants more room to maneuver. "Excellent work," Jake said. "Can you cause more confusion?" "I have an idea, but it's risky. I want to send contradictory orders to the same ships. Order them to go to 2 different places at the same time. What will happen? I don't know. But in a rigid system like theirs, contradictory orders might cause them to freeze up completely." Jake nodded. "Do it," Amy typed quickly, sending out a series of conflicting orders. Some ships were told to attack the Defiants while also being ordered to defend the flagship. Others were ordered to form up in 2 different formations at the same time. The results were immediate and dramatic. Dozens of Zephyrian ships stopped moving completely. Their crews were trying to figure out how to follow 2 opposite orders at the same time. In a culture where disobedience meant death, the crews were paralyzed by fear. "Captain, look at this," Ben Clark called out. "The network traffic is increasing rapidly. They are sending thousands of messages trying to clarify the conflicting orders." Amy watched her screen with growing excitement. "The system is overloading. Every ship is asking for clarification, and the clarifications are creating more confusion." On the Zephyrian flagship, chaos was spreading. Officers were shouting reports from across the bridge. Ships were not responding to orders. The carefully organized fleet was falling apart. "What is happening?" Kethvar demanded. "Sir, we are receiving multiple contradictory orders from command. Our ships don't know which orders to follow. That is impossible. Our command structure is perfect." But it was not impossible. Amy Roberts had found the fatal flaw in Zephyrian society. Their system worked perfectly when everything went according to plan, but it could not handle chaos or unexpected situations. "Captain, I'm detecting something else," Amy said urgently. "The network confusion is spreading beyond this fleet. Ships all across the galaxy are receiving the mixed-up orders." Jake stared at her. "You mean we're affecting their entire empire?" "Yes, sir. The network carries our false orders everywhere. Every Zephyrian ship, base, and command center is getting conflicting instructions. Dr. Ben Clark was monitoring long-range communications." "Captain, I'm picking up emergency transmissions from Zephyrian colonies. They are reporting system failures, communication breakdowns, and military units that have stopped following orders." Jake realized what was happening. One small human ship had accidentally triggered the collapse of the largest empire in the galaxy. The Zephyrians' greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. "Amy, can you make it worse?" he asked. She smiled. "Captain, I'm just getting started. The Defiance's weapons computer used Dr. Ben Clark's mathematical predictions to target the Zephyrian fleet with deadly accuracy. Instead of shooting where the enemy ships were, the computer fired where they would be in a few seconds. The results were devastating. 3 Zephyrian destroyers exploded in quick succession as quantum torpedoes appeared in their exact flight paths. The enemy ships had no time to change course or raise additional shields. They flew directly into the weapons. "Fire! Incredible!" Alex Thompson said, watching the tactical display. "We just destroyed 3 ships with 3 shots." Captain Jake Morrison felt a small spark of hope. "How many ships have we taken out total?" 21 destroyed, 14 damaged and retreating," Alex replied. "But, sir, we still face 165 active enemy vessels." The hope faded quickly. They were doing better than anyone expected, but the numbers were still impossible. Jake looked at the ship status display. Warning lights blinked everywhere. The Defiance was holding together, but barely. "Captain, first transport is away." "Gary," Martinez announced from communications. 25,000 colonists are heading for the jump point. That was good news, but they needed the transports to make a second trip. Jake did the math again. They needed to hold out for at least 4 more hours. "Bridge, this is engineering." Katie Walsh's voice came over the speakers. She sounded tired and stressed. "I need to shut down weapons for 10 minutes to repair the main power coupling. If I don't, we will lose everything." Jake felt his stomach drop. 10 minutes without weapons meant 10 minutes of just taking damage while the enemy pounded them. But if the power coupling failed completely, the fight would be over anyway. "Do it," he ordered. "All power to shields and engines. We go defensive." The next 10 minutes were the longest of Jake's life. The Defiance twisted and turned through space, dodging as much enemy fire as possible. The shields glowed bright blue as they absorbed hit after hit. Several times Jake thought they were about to die, but Katie worked fast. The power coupling came back online with 2 minutes to spare before the shields would have failed. "Weapons back online," Alex reported. "All systems green." "Target the nearest group of enemy ships," Jake ordered. "Make them pay for those 10 minutes." The Defiance struck back with fury. Using Dr. Clark's predictions, they destroyed 5 more ships in quick succession. But something strange was happening. The Zephyrian ships were moving differently now. "Captain, they are changing their formation patterns," Ben observed. "They are not following the mathematical sequence anymore." Jake frowned. "Are they adapting to our tactics?" "No, sir. They seem confused. Some ships are following the old patterns, others are trying new ones. They are not coordinated anymore." On the Zephyrian flagship, War Admiral Kethvar was indeed confused. His tactical officers were reporting impossible results. A single human ship had destroyed 26 vessels and damaged many more. This had never happened in 3 centuries. "Of Zephyrian conquest, how are they predicting our movements?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. Perhaps they have better sensors than we thought." Kethvar studied the battle display. The human ship moved like nothing he had ever seen. It seemed to know what his ships would do before they did it. But that was impossible. The Zephyrian battle. Formations were perfect mathematical constructs developed over hundreds of years. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements." "Sir, that will take 3 days. High Command is in the next galaxy." "Then send it anyway. This single human ship is fighting like an entire fleet." Back on the Defiance, Dr. Ben Clark made a disturbing discovery. While scanning the enemy ships, he had detected something unexpected. "Captain, I am picking up quantum communication signals between the Zephyrian ships. They are all connected through some kind of network." Jake walked over to the science station. "What kind of network?" "It appears to be instant communication, across their entire fleet. Every ship knows what every other ship is doing at the same time. That is how they coordinate so perfectly." Lieutenant Amy Roberts looked up from her computer station. "Captain, if they are all connected, that might be a weakness we can exploit." Amy was the ship's computer specialist. She understood networks and communication systems better than anyone else on board. "Explain," Jake said. "If I can hack into their network, I might be able to disrupt their coordination, maybe even send false orders to their ships." Alex Thompson turned from his weapons station. "That sounds very dangerous. If they detect the hack, they might be able to trace it back to us and learn about our computer systems." Jake thought for a moment. They were already in a desperate situation. Taking risks was better than dying slowly. "How long would you need?" he asked Amy. "At least an hour, maybe 2. And I would need to use our main computer. That means our weapons targeting might be less accurate." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was exhausted. The ship was damaged. They had been fighting for 3 hours against impossible odds. But somehow, they were still alive. "Do it," he decided. "Alex, we go to manual targeting until Amy finishes her work." "Manual targeting against this many ships?" Alex asked. "We managed it for the first 20 years of space combat," Jake replied. "We can manage it for 1 more hour." As Amy began her work, the battle continued. Without computer assistance, the Defiance's weapons were less accurate, but the crew adapted. Maya Johnson calculated firing solutions in her head. Alex Thompson used instinct and experience to pick targets. Even Gary Martinez helped by jamming enemy communications when possible. Meanwhile, Amy dove deep into the Zephyrian network. What she found amazed her. The alien ships were not just connected for communication. They shared everything: sensor data, tactical analysis, even individual ship status. It was like fighting one giant ship with many parts instead of many individual ships. But the network had rules, strict rules. Every ship had to follow orders from higher-ranking vessels. No ship could act independently. No ship could question orders, even if those orders seemed wrong. Amy smiled as she understood the weakness. The Zephyrians' greatest strength was also their greatest vulnerability. If she could get into the command structure, she could turn their own obedience against them. "Captain, I think I found a way in," she announced. "But once I start, there is no going back. They will definitely know we are in their system." Jake looked at the tactical display. They had now destroyed 37 enemy ships, but 128 were still trying to kill them. The second transport from New Denver was only half loaded. "How much more time do the colonists need?" he asked Gary. 3 hours. "Captain, 3 more hours." Jake made his decision. "Amy, begin the hack. All stations, prepare for whatever happens next." The first quantum torpedoes from the Defiance streaked through space toward the massive Zephyrian flagship. The weapons moved faster than light itself, appearing as bright streaks of blue energy against the darkness. War Admiral Kethvar watched from his command bridge as the torpedoes struck his ship's shields. The Eternal Dominion shook slightly, but the shields held. Kethvar turned to his weapons officer. "Return fire. Destroy that pathetic human vessel." Energy beams and plasma missiles erupted from dozens of Zephyrian ships. The space around the Defiance lit up with deadly fire. But Captain Jake Morrison was ready for this. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Full power to shields." Lieutenant Commander Sam Brooks pushed the quantum engines beyond their normal limits. The Defiance twisted and turned through space like a dancer, avoiding most of the enemy fire. The few shots that hit were absorbed by the ship's powerful shields. "Their weapons are strong, but their aim is poor," Commander Alex Thompson reported from his tactical station. "They are not used to fighting fast targets." Jake smiled grimly. The Zephyrians had conquered many worlds, but most of their enemies had been slow, heavy ships that fought in straight lines. Human ships were built differently. They were smaller, faster, and much more flexible in battle. Target their weapons. Systems. "Try to disable as many ships as possible," Jake ordered. The Defiance's weapons fired again and again. Each shot was guided by the ship's smart computer, which learned from every attack. The computer studied how the Zephyrian shields worked, where their weak points were, and how fast their ships could turn. After 10 minutes of fighting, something amazing happened. The computer found a pattern in the enemy shield frequencies. It discovered that Zephyrian shields had a small gap every few seconds, just for a fraction of a moment. The gap was too small for most weapons to exploit, but human quantum torpedoes were different. They could change their energy pattern in flight. "Captain, the computer has found a weakness," Alex announced. "It can time our shots to hit during their shield gaps." "Do it," Jake said. The next torpedo strike was devastating. The weapon passed right through the Zephyrian shields and exploded against the hull of a cruiser. The enemy ship spun out of control, its engines destroyed. War Admiral Kethvar stared in shock. "How did they penetrate our shields? That is impossible." His tactical officer checked the readings twice. "Sir, their weapons somehow matched our shield frequency at the exact moment of impact. No one has ever done that before." On the Defiance, Chief Engineer Katie Walsh was working frantically in the engine room. The ship was taking damage, and she had to keep everything running. Sparks flew from damaged panels as she rerouted power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. "Bridge, this is engineering," Katie called over the communication system. "I can give you 20% more power to weapons, but we will lose life support in some sections." "Do it," Jake replied. "Evacuate those sections." The battle continued. The Defiance was like a small fish swimming among sharks, but this fish had very sharp teeth. Every few minutes, another Zephyrian ship was disabled or destroyed. The enemy fleet began to spread out, trying to surround the human ship. "They are changing tactics," Maya Johnson reported from navigation. "Trying to box us in." Jake studied the tactical display. The Zephyrians were forming a sphere around his ship, cutting off escape routes, but Jake had no intention of running away. The colonist transports needed more time. "How long until the first transport is loaded?" he asked. Gary Martinez checked his communications panel. "Colony reports they need another hour, Captain." An hour. Jake looked at the tactical display again. They had destroyed 12 enemy ships and damaged many more, but there were still over 180 ships. Trying to kill them. The odds were getting worse, not better. "Sir, incoming message from the Zephyrian flagship," Gary announced. "Put it on screen," Jake said. War Admiral Kethvar appeared again, but this time he looked angry instead of amused. "Human Captain, you have destroyed ships of the Zephyrian Empire. This is an act of war." "You attacked our colony first," Jake replied. "We are defending ourselves. Your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and we will kill you quickly. Continue fighting, and we will capture you alive. You will spend the rest of your life in our slave mines." Jake felt his crew tense around him. The Zephyrians were known for treating prisoners very badly, but he also knew that surrender would mean death for the colonists. "Counteroffer," Jake said calmly. "Leave this system now, and we will let you retreat with the ships you have left." Kethvar made that laughing sound again. "You are in no position to make demands, human." "Maybe not, but your ships keep exploding, and mine is still here. That seems like a position of strength to me." Jake cut the communication before the Admiral could reply. He turned to Dr. Ben Clark at the science station. "Doctor, are you picking up anything unusual about their ship formations?" Ben had been studying the enemy fleet since the battle began. "Yes, Captain. They move in very specific patterns, mathematical patterns. It is like they are following a computer program." "Can we predict their movements?" "I believe so. Give me a few more minutes." Jake nodded. If they could predict where the enemy ships would be, they could set traps. The Defiance's computer was already learning to fight better than any human pilot, but if it could also predict the future, they might actually have a chance. The ship shook as more enemy fire hit the shields. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge. They were taking too much damage. "Shield strength down to 60%, Alex reported. "Captain, we have a problem," Katie called from engineering. "The main power coupling is overloading. If it fails, we lose weapons and shields." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. Everything was falling apart. But then he heard Dr. Clark's voice. "Captain, I have it. Their formation changes follow a mathematical sequence. I can predict where each ship will be for the next 30 minutes. Jake opened his eyes and smiled. "Send that data to the weapons computer. Let's see if we can turn their predictability against them." The tide of battle was about to change. The Zephyrians thought their mathematical precision was a strength, but they were about to learn that humans saw patterns differently. Where the aliens saw order and control, humans saw opportunity. The Defiance prepared to strike back harder than ever before. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USV Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship moved quietly through space near the edge of human territory. Jake had been commanding this vessel for 3 years now, and he knew every sound it made, every vibration in the metal floors. The Defiance was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was the smartest. 20 years of human science and engineering had gone into building it. The ship could think for itself in battle, learning from enemy attacks and finding new ways to fight back. Most other captains thought the computer was too complicated, but Jake trusted it with his life. "Captain, we are getting a message from Earth Command," said Communications Officer Gary Martinez from his station near the back of the bridge. Gary was young, maybe 25, but he was good at his job. Put it on screen, Jake replied. He turned to face the main display as Admiral Patricia Stone appeared. Her face looked tired and worried. Captain Morrison, we have a situation. The mining colony at New Denver is reporting strange readings in their outer system. We need you to investigate immediately. Jake nodded. Understood, Admiral. How many people live on New Denver? About 50,000 colonists. They are mostly miners and their families. The colony has been peaceful for 10 years. We will leave right away, Jake said. The screen went dark. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was small but skilled. Commander Alex Thompson handled weapons and tactics. He was a big man with calm eyes who never got excited even in danger. Lieutenant Commander Sam Brooks ran the engines and made sure the ship kept moving. Katie Walsh was the chief engineer, and she could fix anything that broke on the ship. Set course for New Denver. Best speed, Jake ordered. Course set, Captain. We will arrive in 6 hours, said Navigation Officer Maya Johnson. Maya was quiet most of the time, but she always knew exactly where they were in space. The Defiance turned and began moving toward the New Denver system. Jake walked to his command chair and sat down. He had a bad feeling about this mission. Strange. Readings usually meant trouble, and trouble in space could mean death for thousands of people. Dr. Ben Clark, the ship's science officer, was already working at his station. Captain, I am scanning long-range sensors. There are definitely unusual energy patterns coming from the New Denver system. What kind of patterns? Jake asked. Unknown, but they are very powerful. Much more powerful than anything humans have built. Jake felt his stomach tighten. 6 months ago, humanity had made contact with an alien race called the Zephyrians. The first meeting had not gone well. The Zephyrians seemed to think humans were weak and stupid. They had laughed at human technology and called Earth a primitive, backwater planet. The situation got worse when Ambassador Lisa Carter tried to negotiate a trade agreement. The Zephyrians had killed her on live television, broadcasting her death to every human world. Their leader had said humans were vermin who did not deserve to exist alongside superior races. Since then, there had been no contact. Earth's military had been preparing for war, but nobody knew when or where the Zephyrians might attack. Captain, we are approaching the New Denver system, Maya announced. Drop out of faster-than-light speed. Go to yellow alert, Jake ordered. The ship slowed. Down and normal space appeared on the viewing screen. New Denver's sun was a bright yellow star with 7 planets. The mining colony was on the 3rd planet, a rocky world with valuable metals in its crust. Sir, I am detecting multiple ships in the system, said Alex Thompson. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. How many ships? Jake asked. Alex worked at his station for a moment. Over 200, Captain. They are arranged in attack formation around New Denver. Jake stood up quickly. Are they Zephyrian? Yes, sir. Their ships match the designs from our first contact files. Jake felt his blood turn cold. 200 ships was more than the entire human fleet. The Defiance was alone, and there was no way to call for help in time. Open a channel to New Denver Colony, Jake ordered. The face of Colony Administrator Frank Davis appeared on screen. The man looked terrified. Behind him, Jake could see people running and shouting. Captain Morrison, thank God you are here. The alien ships appeared 2 hours ago. They are demanding that we surrender the colony to them. How many people can you evacuate? Jake asked. Our transport ships can carry about 25,000 people per trip, but we need at least 8 hours to get everyone off the planet. Jake did quick math in his head. The transports could make 2 trips, but that would take 16 hours total. The Zephyrians would not wait that long. Get the first group ready to leave right now. Women and children first, Jake said. But Captain, what about the alien fleet? They will destroy any ship that tries to leave. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. He knew what he had to do, even though it might mean death for all of them. Don't worry about the alien ships. The Defiance will keep them busy. Frank Davis stared at him. Captain, there are over 200 enemy ships out there. You cannot fight them all. Maybe not, but we can try. Start loading those transports. Jake cut the communication and turned to his crew. You all heard what is happening. We are going to buy time for the colonists to escape. I will not order any of you to stay. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle to the colony. Nobody moved. Commander Thompson spoke for all of them. Captain, we signed up to protect human colonies. That is what we are going to do. Jake felt proud of his crew, but also scared for them. They were about to face impossible odds. All stations, prepare for battle. Weapons to full power, shields to maximum. And somebody get me a channel to the Zephyrian fleet commander. The main screen changed to show a large alien creature. The Zephyrian had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes like black glass. It wore a military uniform covered in symbols and medals. I am War Admiral Kethvar of the Eternal Dominion. You will surrender your ship immediately, or we will destroy you. Jake stood straight and looked directly at the alien. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the USV Defiance. You will leave this system immediately, or we will make you leave. The Zephyrian made a sound like laughter. You are one small ship. We are a battle fleet. You cannot win. Maybe not, Jake said, but we are going to try. He cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Commander Thompson, target their flagship. All weapons. Weapons ready, Captain. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. One human ship against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Fire. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler system. Captain Jake Morrison stood in his dress uniform on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from across the galaxy arrive for the historic peace conference. UES Valiant floated nearby, its hull bearing the scars of that impossible day. The ship had become famous throughout known space, a symbol of hope that even the smallest force could change the universe when guided by the right principles. Quite a sight, isn't it? Said Admiral Rebecca Carter, Jake's new commanding officer. She had traveled from Earth to personally oversee the peace negotiations. Yes, ma'am, Jake replied. I never imagined it would grow this big. Through the massive viewport, they could see ships from 27 different species. Some were former members of the Zerian Empire who had declared independence after hearing about the battle. Others were entirely new civilizations that had been hiding from the Empire for generations. Commander Lisa Bennett approached them, carrying a datapad. Admiral Captain, the final delegation has just arrived. The Zerian Republic representatives are requesting permission to dock. Jake smiled at the name. The Zerian Empire no longer existed. In its place, a collection of independent worlds had formed the Zerian Republic, dedicated to peaceful cooperation instead of conquest. Permission granted, Admiral Carter said. And Lisa, please escort their delegation to the main conference room. This is a historic moment. As Lisa left to handle the arrangements, Jake thought about everything that had changed since that day in space. The crew of the Valiant had become celebrities across the galaxy, but more importantly, they had become symbols of a new way of thinking. Dr. Amanda Foster joined them at the viewport. She now served as Earth's chief advisor on alien relations, her expertise in xenobiology making her invaluable in the new galactic community. The final vote tallies are in from the Zerion worlds, Amanda reported. 93% voted to join the new Galactic Cooperation Council. The age of empire is truly over. What about the remaining 7%? Jake asked. They've chosen isolation, Amanda replied. Admiral Zexathari himself leads a small group of ships that have withdrawn to the outer rim. They're not bothering anyone, just living quietly on a few remote worlds. Jake nodded. Even Zexathari deserved the chance to find peace in his own way. The old admiral had sent a personal message to Jake a month ago, apologizing for the invasion and thanking him for showing mercy to captured Zerion crews. Sir, Communications Officer Nicole Turner's voice came over the intercom. "The ceremony is ready to begin." Jake straightened his uniform and walked toward the main conference room. As he entered, he was amazed by what he saw. Representatives from dozens of species sat together around a circular table, discussing trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. At the center of the table sat Commander Veltar, the Zarion officer whose crew the Valiant had rescued during the battle. He now served as the elected representative of the former Zarian worlds. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said, standing as Jake entered. "Please, take your place at the table." Jake felt honored but also humble. "I'm just a ship captain. This council should be led by diplomats and elected officials." "You are the person who showed us that strength comes from helping others, not conquering them," replied Ambassador Krina of the Delphin Collective. "Your voice belongs here." As Jake took his seat, he looked around the table at faces from across the galaxy. Some were humanoid, others were completely alien, but all of them shared the same expression: hope. "The first order of business," announced Veltar, "is the establishment of the Galactic Protection Fleet. This will be a joint force dedicated to protecting peaceful worlds from any future threats. I nominate Captain Morrison to lead this fleet," said Ambassador Thane of the Rigel Commonwealth. "Seconded," called out several other representatives. Jake held up his hand. "I'm honored by your trust, but I think the fleet should be led by a council, not one person. We've seen what happens when too much power is given to one individual." Nods of agreement went around the table. The lessons of the Zarion Empire had been learned well. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cooper's voice came over the intercom. "All stations, this is engineering. We have a priority transmission from the Outer Rim territories." Jake frowned. "Put it through, Ryan." The main screen activated, showing a familiar face. Admiral Zexathari appeared, looking older but more peaceful than Jake had ever seen him. "Captain Morrison," the former admiral said, "I am calling to inform the Council of an important development. A new threat has appeared in the Outer Rim. A species calling itself the Void Collective has begun attacking isolated worlds." The conference room fell silent. Jake leaned forward. "What kind of threat, Admiral?" "They are like we once were," Zexathari replied. "They believe in conquest through fear. But, Captain, they have heard the stories of your victory at Kepler. They see the growing cooperation in this sector as a threat to their expansion plans." "How many ships?" asked Lisa, who had joined the conference. "Unknown," Zexathari answered. "But, Captain Morrison, I have a request. My people and I wish to join the Galactic Protection Fleet. We know how conquerors think. We can help you stop them before they destroy what you have built." Jake looked around the table. The representatives were nodding their agreement. Even former enemies could become allies when united by common purpose. "Admiral," Jake said, "on behalf of the Galactic Cooperation Council, I accept your offer. Welcome to the Alliance." Zexathari smiled, the first time Jake had ever seen the alien look truly happy. "Thank you, Captain. Perhaps old warriors can learn new purposes." As the transmission ended, Jake stood and looked around the conference room. Representatives from dozens of worlds were already making plans to face this new threat together. 6 months ago, Jake said, one human ship faced an entire empire. Today, dozens of species stand together as equals. Tomorrow, we'll face whatever comes our way as friends. Outside the viewport, the UES Valiant caught the light of the local star, its hull gleaming like a beacon of hope in the darkness of space. The ship that had once stood alone against impossible odds now flew alongside vessels from across the galaxy. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, Jake knew that other species were watching, learning that even the smallest light could drive away the greatest darkness.